Welcome, everyone. It's Thursday afternoon, and that means it's time for the bi-weekly Hockey Debates podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Allen. We're the Hockey Debaters, and today's special guest is a Director of Reserve List Scouting and a longtime employee of the Colorado Avalanche, Brad Smith, and remembered most fondly probably by NHL fans as Motor City Smitty, a Red Wing, a Maple Leaf, a Flame, and a Canuck, I believe. Did I get them all there, Brad?
You got them.
And one of the most popular players in his day, and we appreciate you joining us today, Brad. And obviously, everything's kind of in dry dock with hockey right now. What is life like as an NHL executive in this time of what should be the most exciting time of the year, but is right now kind of on hold?
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, we're all bunkered down in our homes. We don't go outside, and we make the most out of it. It's a nice thing to be with the family, and one girl's got homework, and we won't be doing this ever again probably in our lives. And but we stay busy. We have scouting meetings on these conference calls with the space time about 2 or 3 times a week, and they'll last for 2.5 hours. And we just got to be prepared for when this thing gets going again, and or when the draft, or where the draft's going to be, and when the draft is. So we have to be prepared, and we're getting our list ready and fine tuning it. And there's some things we do with the American League team, sign some college players and that kind of thing. But really, that's about it right now.
Brad, when I do my next podcast with your buddy Tom Laidlaw, I'm going to tell him that you get more respect from the Avalanche than he gets from the Rangers. And I say that because when I looked at your bio on the Avalanche, they make note of the fact that your nickname is Motor City Smitty. Now, given the history between the Red Wings and the Colorado Avalanche, I think that's the utmost of respect that they allow you to have a Red Wings-related nickname when you've been with the Colorado Avalanche for 26 years. So anyway, I really enjoyed that, and I'm going to bring that up on the next podcast.
Yeah, that's great. You do that. I see some people, I go to the airport like quite a bit. I go to Seattle, to Detroit, and, sometimes I'll have an Avalanche T-shirt on or golf shirt, and, they'll say to me, they go, "Geez, I feel bad for you." And I said, "Why do you feel bad for me?" "Because you're an Avalanche fan." And I'll say to them, "Well, I feel bad for you because I'm a Red Wing. I'm not going to tell you who I am. Half the people know me, half the people don't know me. And the ones that don't know me, they go crazy trying to figure out who I am." So I have some fun with that.
Brad, I'm happy to have a former player because I've been wondering about this for the last couple of days. There's a lot of talk about if we do play, and it's up in the air, and there's no definite plan. But it seems like if we're going to play, we might have to go to 5-game series. And as a former player and as an executive now, who do you think that favors? Does that favor the underdog because the longer a series goes, that it's more likely to have it go in the to the favorite? Or how do you see that? Who does it favor?
Well, being an underdog and going to a short series, you win one game, the first game or the second game, and all of a sudden the pressure's on the favorite team. So I think it favors the underdog teams. I mean, they have nothing to lose, and they come up and strike early, and you're not ready. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unique things that we're all dealing with that we've never dealt with before in this uncertain time. But I think one of the most bizarre is that hockey players can't get on the ice. I mean, we all know, and certainly you know that as a former player, how vital it is to be able to skate. And what kind of things can and are the Avalanche doing to kind of keep the guys in shape to play hockey?
I don't even know. I couldn't answer that question. I'm sure they have their own routines. Each guy has their own routine and does stuff at home. I know it's hard. When I was a player, I couldn't even take a day off because it took me that much longer to get back, in 2 days from that. So I had to go to the rink and do some biking or do some light skating for 10 or 15 minutes. So I could never take a day off. But I'm sure they got their own programs at home. They're all, today's athletes are, in tremendous shape, and I'm sure they're keeping themselves prepared and ready to go if this thing gets going again.
Brad, I realize you're a little biased in your position, but when I look at the Avalanche as a team, what strikes me is, in addition to being a quality hockey team, is how entertaining they are. And I just wonder, as a guy that's been there as this team developed, I mean, could you just see this team coming together and meshing when you picked off all these components and getting Nathan McKinnon and Rantanen and so forth? Did boy, like this is at some point this is going to be an incredibly entertaining hockey team?
Well, about 4 or 5 years ago or 6 years ago, we sort of changed our way of drafting. We wanted to go for speed and hockey IQ, and guys like McKinnon and guys like Landeskog and Rantanen, they're all good skaters. They all got great hockey IQ. McCarter's got great hockey IQ. And that's what we're really looking for, and we've been fortunate to hit on some drafts because it's not always easy. Pick no matter where you pick, and if you pick early, you got to hit, and it's important to hit with those early picks. And we've been fortunate enough to hit, and we got 2 guys coming in, Byron Bowman and Alexander Newhook. One's a defenseman, one's a forward, and they're going to make our team more exciting because that's what they are. They're fast, they're exciting, and they got a good hockey IQ. And that's what big thing Joe emphasizes in all our meetings is the hockey IQ from the player.
Obviously, one advantage, I guess, to knowing that the developmental seasons are all officially over is you guys can sit down and prepare for a draft. You obviously don't know how it's going to take place or when it's going to take place, but in terms of player development, nothing's going to change with these guys. There's not going to be a playoff in college or junior hockey where you can kind of watch bubble guys and kind of decide, do they go up or down in your ratings. So is there any danger though that, with all this amount of time to play, can you guys overanalyze things too much?
It's a great point. I don't like overanalyzing things. I like to keep things really simple. As far as knowing the players and missing what the players might have done in playoffs and that kind of thing. If you don't know who the players are, but they all had a regular season. I mean, they all got a regular season. And basically, the Western Hockey League, Quebec, and all the leagues had maybe 1 or 2 games left to go on their schedule. So if you don't know them now, you're in trouble. Does it hurt some kids? I think it hurts some kids, but we have to be ready as a staff. We're ready as a staff. We got our list. Excuse me, our list nice and tight. But yeah, I think it will hurt some players because they didn't get a chance. Some of the guys in the bubble that could maybe pull ahead of some guys, but that's just the way it is.
Brad, if you ask me my honest opinion about whether we should play or not, what I would say is I really want us to play. I think the fans need it. I think we're all going a little stir crazy. But to be totally honest, I'm very concerned about it. Like I see the plan, and we're going to get in a bubble, and we're going to have all the players together in a neutral zone site. But I'm worried that it'll be hard to maintain that bubble. And if we get one player, with the virus, we know how flu sweeps through our league. In the winter, I'm just concerned about what had happened. Do you allow yourself to think about that, or as you mentioned before we went on live, do you just see, hey, the glass is half full, we're going to, just plow ahead and hope for the best?
Well, I think every day or every week things change drastically with this awful disease we're dealing with, and I just think something will give. And we'll have a chance to play, but that's above my pay grade, and that's for the league offices to figure all that stuff out. And I'm sure when time is, they figure out they'll make the right decision, and we'll just have to move forward either way.
Are those?
I agree with that point. It's going to be difficult.
Are those kind of discussions sort of ongoing with the league and the teams? Like, the different logistics of possible scenarios, or is it just kind of
all as I know that I can say that I know every day there's conference calls with the league and team officials. They're doing the best to talk things out and coming up with a plan. So they're on top of this. Everybody's on top of this, and we'll just got to see what happens.
Brad, I like to talk to former players and ask them what their the biggest game they ever played in. And since I have you here, I'm going to ask you that. What is the biggest game you ever played in, and what do you remember about it?
Well, I was fortunate to play a lot of big games and be a part of some of the big games, but I would have to say the biggest game was when we beat St. Louis out, I think in Game 6. I scored the winning goal. It was a big goal. Scored a breakaway earlier in the game, and we won 4-0 and knocked St. Louis out of the playoffs. And that was a big highlight for me. And I think one of the biggest highlights was I got to play against the Russian national team when they came over here and toured. And when I was in Vancouver, and I scored 2 goals late in the second period, and I get back to the bench, and Harry Neal was our coach, and he goes, "What are you going to do if you score one more goal?" I said, "Harry, I'm going to go in the stands and shake hands with every person in the building." Harry goes, "You're not getting back on the ice." And the funny thing about it, early in the third period, the goalie Michigan fell out of his net. Stan Schmiel gave me the puck. I had the empty net. The puck bounced over my stick. So I couldn't go in the stands. Harry got his wish.
Well, I'd be remiss as a Windsor guy, and you as a Windsor guy and a former Spitfires player and coach, if I didn't ask you about another Windsor guy, your goaltender, Philip Grubauer, a guy who's really gotten a chance to shine with you guys. Yeah,
he sure has. We picked up on a trade a couple of years ago. He came in and, him and Varlamov basically split the year, and Varley had some injuries, and Grubauer got hot in the last 10 games of the season and continued right through the playoffs. I mean, I think with a break in Game 7 in San Jose, we could have gone a little further, and we never got that break, and Grubauer's done a great job for us. He's definitely a quality number 1 NHL goalie.
All right, Brad. Well, it looks like our time has run out. Appreciate having you on our program, and good luck to the Avalanche if we come back this season, although I don't think they're going to need luck. That's a pretty darn good team.
We'll need luck.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys. Really pleasure to be with you guys, and stay safe and stay well, and God bless.
All right.
You do the same. Thanks for joining us today, Brad. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think we've all got Motor City Smitty stories over the years. I mean, I remember when he coached the Spitfires, he used to get into all kinds of battles with Dave Branch, who ran the Ontario Hockey League, and he'd jokingly pull his gold card out of his wallet and say, "I'll buy this league."
Yeah.
Every time I find.
I think what speaks to Brad's quality as a hockey guy is the fact that he's been with the same organization 26 years. Like in this day and age where you have turnover of managerial staffs on a regular basis now, the fact that he's moved through multiple regimes and still had a prominent place, tells you how respected and valued he is. And I used to sit next to him in the old Joe Louis press box back when he was, I think was he living in Windsor then, Bob? I think so. Yeah.
Based in Windsor.
And I just love just sitting next to him and talking hockey with him because he was very wired in. I mean, he knew everything that was going on in the league. And, you could learn more about what was happening with, probably 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 teams just by sitting next to him than you could by making, 10 calls, around the league. So it was always, I loved it when I'd look on the media list and see that I was sitting next to him because it was fun to, he'd just been here or there and he'd say, "Hey, I was seeing this guy, and he was playing well, and it was always a treat to be around him. Just a genuinely good guy.
Yeah,
in
really
addition-
beloved.
Yeah,
all the cities he played in the NHL, he was a beloved figure.
yeah. Just to pick up on the discussion now, and Gary Bettman, you mentioned he was on CNN last night, and I saw beforehand he had been interviewed by I think it was Sports Business Daily, or it was a business publication anyway, and he said he would guess that they were going to play it. It seems, and I had talked to several general managers last week, and it seemed like everybody's expecting that they're going to figure out how to create some sort of bubble and make this work. But I'm still a little bit skeptical that it will work without at some point some player testing positive. It wouldn't take much. If we're going to try to sequester 16 playoff teams and then somehow hope that nobody breaks the sanctity of the bubble, and then nobody tests positive, because you're going to have to test players on a regular basis, because you sure wouldn't want them competing if someone is asymptomatic but have the test positive and would test positive for the virus. So it's scary. I mean, I'm totally being honest when I say I look forward and I hope they play, but I'm really worried about it. I think it's I hope it's not irresponsible. I know they're trying to be as safe as they can, but when you hear the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor suggest that they don't see a large venue operation this calendar year, what that says that they know that the chances of a sort of a relapse of a second wave or a second surge of the virus is not only possible but maybe probable. So what happens? I know Gary Bettman and Bill Daly have also said that it's imperative that they get next season going, because this season, even if they play, and I think that's one of the things that's lost. We've had a disruption in the force here. Like, they're going to be playing the empty stands, so they're not gaining gate revenue. Obviously, there's television money, and there's the fulfilling of a contract. So I think that's important for them financially. But they're going to take a hit here, and then it sure sounds like we're going to have some disruption next year, because we'll have corporate sponsorship that'll be, I'm assuming, reduced. I don't know that. Even if we got the economy rolling, that everybody's going to have marketing budgets to, give the NHL a big stipend for being a sponsor at the Winter Classic, or to be, or even advertising on the boards and so forth. So this is going to cause some havoc with the salary cap for a couple of years. And but if that's all it is, I think they'll take that. I think they can sort that out. They being the NHL and the NHL Players Association. I think what they want to avoid is obviously having something serious happen with a player or fans going to the games. So it's just a real difficult thing, and really hard to predict what will happen. I think everybody's trying to microwave analysis here, and that's always a dangerous thing, especially when the whole situation or scenario changes pretty dramatically every 24 hours.
Yeah, and we had an NFL player whose name escapes me at the moment test positive today. The first
happens to be Allen, by the way, but
yeah, I knew it was Allen. I couldn't remember the first name. And but that's a guy who's not even involved in the sport yet has got it. So I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they can get it. And,
yeah,
and I agree with you. I think, and all let's face it, people in the sports world are generally positive people. I mean, you look at Jeff Blashill this year. If any guy had a right to just kind of say, "Why me?" and start screaming and losing his cool, it was him. And yet every day he came to the rink, he was positive about, coaching the worst hockey team in the NHL and the worst NHL team we've probably seen in the last decade. he kept his positive approach. And most of those players, you talk to them on a daily basis, certainly they would be down after they lost, but the next day it was a new day and let's get at it. And that's kind of the way people in the sports world approach life. And I think that's why there is, people look at them with puzzled stares when they talk about playing again, but that's just the way they're hardwired. They look for the positive outcome. And then I think, we all hope, like you said earlier, we all hope it's going to happen, but the realism is, we don't know what the future holds with this disease, and we don't, how do you game plan for something that's so unknown?
Well, and I think the biggest question that has to be answered, if you're Gary Bettman and Don Fear and the players themselves, as they tell their wives and mothers and things of why they're going to play, is what happens if one player tests positive during this? Because you got to answer that question before you can resume competition. Does it mean that team has to be quarantined for 14 days and we got to delay that playoff series? Does it mean that team has to forfeit because they can't play anymore? And if the other team is tested, doesn't have any players testing positive, they advance? Like what exactly does that mean? Or do we just raise our hands and say we tried and we're done? I think you got to answer that question before you move ahead with playing that. But I would say this, from a lighthearted note, don't you think, Bob, knowing what you do about the training habits and the lifestyle of players, if we're telling every player that they got to stay in the hotel, they got to eat their meals in the hotel, we're going to have team meals and all that, they're going to spend a lot of time at the rink in the weight room. These guys are going to be in the best shapes of their lives in terms of weight training and skating and everything else, because they're not going to have much to do. And we think we're going stir crazy, but imagine a finely tuned athlete, who's used to being pretty active. I mean, these are young guys, and especially those who aren't married, who have busy social lives. Now they're going to sit around in a hotel, playing video games. There's just so many video games you can play, so many books you can read, so many movies you can watch. I mean, we're all going through that now. So just imagine if you're, 25 and, have a bank account with lots of zeros in it, have a lot of money in your account, and you really can't do anything but kind of hang out in a hotel. So, that's why I'm also concerned about whether or not we can get every player to not penetrate or break the safety bubble, when they venture out, if their buddy calls them, hey, I'm in town. I'm on my way here, and hey, why don't you sneak out? We'll have a beer. I don't know that that's going to happen. I hope not, but
we certainly saw that last week with the Dallas Cowboys, where a bunch, it was like 30 of them, I think it was, got together to have a birthday party for one of the players.
Yeah,
they knew full well not to do that. They still did it. And we're getting mixed messages from our leaders. And in our country last weekend for Easter, the Prime Minister went to his cottage with his family, which you're not supposed to do. And the leader of the opposition flew in a private jet to Saskatchewan with 2 other families on the plane. No social distancing there. And then in the U.S., you've got Ivanka Trump flying to New York to go to a Passover with their families. So if they're not doing it, how do you tell the everyday people, you got to do this?
Right. Well, and, the 3 of us that were on this podcast, Brad Smith and I, and you're not quite as old as we are, but, we're beyond the age where, we're in the higher risk group. So this stuff's more meaningful.
I'm up against it. I'm close.
Yeah, you are close. Yeah. But, maybe we just think about it more. But, I really actually enjoyed Smitty's attitude about it. Is it's above his pay grade. Secondly, he's a guy that's half full, and he just believes it's going to work out, and I'm hopeful, and I do believe. And when you say this, because it's really easy to criticize the person in charge, but But I do believe, having covered Gary Bettman, having covered the league for a long time, knowing Donald Fear, having covered him as well, I do believe that they're sitting around trying to make this as safe as possible. Like, if it doesn't work out, it won't be because they put money first. I guarantee that. I mean, I just know from covering these guys and how they think that, there's a lot of thought being given to safety. Now, that doesn't mean that it will work, because they're also trying to balance in, getting back on the ice. And those are, difficult. It's a tough balancing act. It really is, trying to figure out, what to do here. And, you see it. I don't know exactly how it's going in Canada, but in the U.S., it's a contentious issue about whether or not the country should be reopened, and even who makes that decision. Our president, Donald Trump, thinks he makes that decision, and governors in the 50 states seem to believe they make that decision. And ultimately, don't you and I make that decision? Because we got to decide whether we're going to follow what they tell us to do. So I don't know. It's a very, very confusing time, and I hope we can figure out. I know I've seen that some people have suggested that the most likely sport to start and to be the least dangerous to the participants would be golf. We could probably do that, and we could. As I said right from the beginning, you could just tell every player they can use golf ball per hole. And when you knock it in the cup, you don't retrieve it. A guy with a glove goes and gets it and throws it in just like it's a waste and throws it away. So you don't have to put your hand in a hole ever. So you're just out there with you and your caddy, and he can stand 6 feet apart. So maybe we'll see that sport, but everything else, especially the contact sports, like football and hockey and basketball to a lesser extent, but still, we've all seen them leaning on each other, and we all have seen what happens when they collide and the stuff that comes out of their mouth. And I just saw, for example, on CNN today, they had and I don't know what the technology was, but they had a display, and it looked like it was it was like a camera look at what goes into your mouth when you're wearing a mask, and what goes in when you're not wearing a mask. And it was lit up, and so when you're wearing a mask, you saw 2 little translucent dots. That was all that was getting through. And without that, the thing was all lit up. And now you're doing that, and you're thinking, oh my God, I should be wearing a mask everywhere I go, even if I'm just walking down the street. So it's just really an interesting time. But here's the bottom line, folks. I would guess we're going to play, based on what I'm hearing. That we're going to try. There's going to be some way we're going to try to make it work, and some neutral site, and hope for the best. So that's my take on it. And it is just a guess, because we don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's an educated guess.
Well, 2 people we know who definitely are going to play. It was announced today that Wayne Gretzky and the man who's trying to hunt him down for the NHL's all-time goals record, Alexander Ovechkin, are going to play a game of NHL 20, the video game. And it was Gretzky who initiated this, apparently, and it's going to be to benefit COVID-19 charities. And Gretzky apparently called the Capitals to organize this. So, logically, you'd think Ovechkin's a younger guy; he's going to be more video game savvy. But I don't think you want to bet against the great one. I just think it's like Tom Brady. You keep expecting Tom Brady's going to get too old, and not be able to do it anymore. I don't like betting against Tom Brady, because the same reason I like betting against Gretzky, because they're the GOATs in their sport, and he may be but he's the same age as me, exactly. And yet I still, as much as Ovechkin probably plays a lot more video games than Gretzky, we assume, I still wouldn't want to bet against the great one.
Well, I like your thinking. I could go with that. I'll embrace that philosophy as well. I wouldn't bet against Wayne Gretzky, but I do love the fact that, just as you pointed out, that it's the older player, the boomer, the baby boomer, who suggested that they do some video games. The question I'd love to ask Wayne is, how often does he actually play? It's hard for me to believe that Wayne is spending a lot of time on video games, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he dives right in. Who knows? And when we're all sheltering in place, video games are an option for everyone.
Well, I don't know if you're a fan of the movie Swingers, but there was the famous video hockey scene there where Vince Vaughn said, "Watch me make Gretzky bleed." And he's playing the Blackhawks against the Kings, and of course uses Jeremy Roenick to high stick Gretzky and make him bleed. I wonder if Alexander Ovechkin will make Wayne Gretzky bleed in homage to Vince Vaughn. Well, that's going to be it for today, folks. We've run out of time again. Another spirited talk, and a half an hour goes just like that. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bob Duff. This is Kevin Allen, my co-host. We're the Hockey Debaters on the Hockey Debates podcast, and we'll be back with you again on Monday, and hope you join us.